In this video, we're going to talk about a really common concern of people that you come into contact when you're doing makeup application, and probably the most common thing that people find their makeup comes off the most, and that people are like they're more aware than I say if their skin's like dry or normal.
Yes.
They know if their skin's oily.
Definitely.
So yeah, we're going to talk about oily skin. And we're going to talk about breakouts and things associated with that.
Yeah, so oily skin causes a whole heap of different contentious issues for people when it comes to makeup.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a combination skin where I have normal hair, but I'm oily in the T-zone, which is the most common skin type. Yeah. And I'm constantly finding that even if I use a matte foundation, even just a few hours later, I do have that shininess and that oiliness in the T-zone, and I'm having to either reapply or blot, which blotting is probably better, isn't it, really, than reapplying, because what we find with oily skin is it changes the chemical composition of the skin's surface. I think you makeup artists call it oxidization.
Yeah, so oxidizing is like a really common word now that's like thrown around all the time.
Yeah.
Even when I'm doing clients' makeup, or if like I'm working in more of like a retail setting, people always say, oh, does this foundation oxidize? Does this foundation oxidize? And it's just become such a common thing, but I think there's so many misconceptions around it.
Definitely.
The main thing that I think impacts or is related to oxidization is actually not necessarily the product that you're using, but it's actually your skin type. Yeah.
It's your skin.
Yeah. So I think, like, we were talking about this off camera as well, but with oily skin, if your skin produces a lot of oil, generally it produces a little bit more heat.
Definitely.
And anything, like whether you're under lights or, you know, if your skin's oily and it's producing more heat, it can change the chemical composition of the actual makeup, which causes the makeup to potentially change color, to break down, all those types of things. So when you talk about products oxidizing or getting darker when you wear them, sometimes it's actually, if your skin's combination or oily, it's actually your skin type changing the foundation, not necessarily the foundation.
For sure. And that whole heat component as well, it comes back to what we were talking about with the circulation. So if you do have an oily skin, it actually means that you do have better circulation.
Yeah.
So you do throw a lot more heat.
So I think, like, with oilier skin, obviously it's really important, again, like you need to have the consultation with your client to work out if they're oily or not.
Definitely.
And so if they're oily, or whether they're combination, it's probably like using similar products but adapting the placement of them on the face.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Particularly for combinations.
Yeah, 100%. So with oilier skin, some of the things that we talked about using are like moisturizers. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about the misconception about using moisturizer when you have oily skin?
Most definitely. So usually the kind of moisturizer, the consistency of moisturizer we would use for an oilier skin is like a lotion, and one that has matte properties in it, that's going to basically help the skin to keep absorbing the oil throughout the day. Again, a really good primer, a good matte primer is going to be really great at disallowing the oil from penetrating through the layer that primer creates as well. Also, another thing that a lot of people don't understand is when we talk about oil content within moisturizing products, yes, a more nourishing product is going to have more oil content in there, but you've got to make sure when you have an oily skin, you've still got to use hydrating products as well. Some people think that they don't have to, but because there's a difference between lack of oil and lack of moisture, you still need to make sure that you hydrate the skin, because if you use stripping products on an oily skin, what it actually does is it dehydrates the skin, and then it also causes the oil to reproduce at a more rapid rate as well. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, so I think, like, in saying that, it's really important that if you have oily skin, that, again, like Kristy said, that you're using a moisturizer, but making sure it's appropriate for your skin type. So like you said, using something that's sort of got to absorb into the skin a bit quickly, that maybe potentially mattes the skin a little bit more. Anything that's like quite light, like a gel-based moisture, even that absorbs into the skin quickly.
Definitely.
And then using, you know, oil control products on top of that, like a primer that's going to create a base between the foundation and, you know, your skin.
Yes.
And then potentially more of like a matte foundation and a matte powder that's going to absorb that oil as well. But like Kristy said, if you don't use moisturizer, but then you use all these other oil control products, it's actually going to have the reverse effect, and it's going to make your skin produce more oil because it's trying to give you some level of hydration. So it's really important, again, to investigate and make sure that you have these different kind of products in your kit, so you can actually adapt the makeup application to different skin types.
How do you combat breakouts when it comes to
makeup application?
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with breakouts, you really need to have an honest conversation with your client about the fact that there is only so much that you can do to change the texture of the skin in one foundation application.
Yes.
So I think it's more about being honest with the result that they're going to get when you're covering acne that's like risen, that there's quite a lot of texture. So a lot of the time when people have acne or their skin's healing, they do get a little bit of dryness around that area, and then obviously using oil control products, so it's not hydrating that skin. So again, I like to use softening lotion and products like that to soften that skin. So when you do use the moisturizer, well, it doesn't matter what composition the moisturizer is, whether it's, like a lightweight or something that's more concentrated, it does absorb that, and you avoid any of the extra texture that you might get from just using all oil control products first.
Yes.
And I think too, like with acne, when you're using a brush to like apply the product, sometimes with a brush you can pull up texture that may not necessarily be visible to the natural eye straight away.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I'm applying product to acne, I like to use like a sponge application technique, because it's going to press the product into the skin on top of the acne and minimize any extra texture that might be created by a brush.
And also not irritate it as well. Do you find that the synthetic brush can sometimes irritate it? Because I find with acne, a lot of people don't understand acne is very reactive and can get really sensitive as well. So using really gentle products on the area is really important.
Yeah.
Because it can get quite angry as well. So again, does it come back to also sometimes color correcting the area as well?
Yeah, so depending on the severity of it, like sometimes obviously depending on the person's skin tone or their undertone, acne can be quite red, or if it's acne scarring that's healing, it can be that like darker kind of blue based tone.
Yes.
So rather than, again, just smothering foundation on the face, it really comes down to potentially using products that are going to color correct first, or on top of, or however you apply the makeup, to kind of avoid that heavy cakey look that can come from putting heavy makeup on any texture on the skin.
Yeah.
And I think too, spot concealing is really important, especially when someone has like a lot of acne, to avoid a lot of texture. I really layer product. So I might, color correct and do a foundation application, and then really spot conceal, use smaller brushes to really hone in, or smaller sponges to hone in on those really like concentrated areas where there's like a lot of breakouts, and then spot powder as well.
Yeah.
So spot powder with the smaller brushes, and rather than just like dusting powder all over the face, really pressing the product into those areas where you're getting a little bit more coverage, and it's going to kind of set it a little bit more in place.
Yeah, I agree.
You do? Great. And take some of those tips home for your combination skin. So that really ends the videos that we really based on giving you knowledge, but please stay tuned or keep an eye out for the next video that we're going to post, because Kristy's actually going to do a consultation on me just to kind of give you an idea about the types of questions and the types of things that you can look and touch for on the face, just to give you an idea about how to identify these things on the skin if maybe you're not as confident.
Great.